couple of the members of my organization that are on this call today as well. But I've been in advertising since 2008. But my love for travel and tourism really started in 2005, and that's when I, on a whim, decided to go drive tour buses in Alaska for the summer in 2005. And I drove tour buses all summer long and had an amazing experience, saw some wonderful things in Alaska. And I can dive into that experience more if somebody wants to ask questions about that. But I had the time of my life. And then got into advertising in 2008. And in 2009, I graduated from Brigham Young University in advertising. And about 3 weeks before graduation, the company that I was working for went out of business. So I went from thinking that I was going to have a great job lined up, opportunity to dive into the industry, and instead I was 3 weeks from graduation and found out that there wasn't a job waiting for me on the other side. So went and took an internship at a big agency in just north of Salt Lake City, Utah, and spent some time there at a big agency, and then went down to St. George, Utah after a year and a half to take a job at another advertising agency there. About a year after going to that agency, I walked into the Cedar City, Utah tourism office, not knowing anything about the tourism industry, and said, "Hey, do you need help with your advertising?" And just so happened they did, and the timing was right, and it was one of those events that happens in your life that you look back on and you didn't realize at the time how pivotal it was. And fast forward 5 years later, we had several destinations we worked with. And I actually purchased the agency from the previous owner and rebranded it to Relic. And that's the advertising agency that I own today. It's called Relic, and we focus on destination marketing. And one thing that we found in this process of building this agency and learning the tourism industry, we walked into almost every destination we walked into, we'd find that they were struggling kind of with the same things. And, a lot of the problems in the industry are universal. For example, the tourism destination runs the advertising campaign, but the hotels and the restaurants and the other attractions within a destination actually collect the revenue. So the problem that creates is the inability to understand what ad drove the conversion or the visitor to book a trip to go visit that destination. And that's a pretty universal challenge in the industry even today. But there's things that you can do to get more directional information and get a little further along. And we decided about a year ago, in fact, we just hit our year mark last month, that we wanted to start a podcast so that destinations could hear what other people are doing to solve these same problems that everybody's dealing with. And as I brought all these people on the show, I realized that these are some of the smartest people in the industry that are coming and they're sharing their knowledge with us. And I said, I've got to do something with all this amazing content that we're getting on the show. And that's when I decided we need to write a book. We need to curate this content into a book that can be more of a guide and framework for destinations to understand how to handle their marketing effectively, and especially to build their brand. The premise of the book comes from, in 2013, I was at the Utah Tourism Conference, and I was in a session, and the session was being led by really a titan of the Utah ad agency industry. His name's Tom Love, and he defined a brand as the sum of all the touch points an organization has with the outside world. And I understood what a brand was before that. I had heard many different definitions of a brand, but the thing about his definition was that it was so clear, easy to understand, and actionable. And I really felt like that the definition of a brand being the sum of all the touch points that an organization has with the outside world, it provided the ability to action on that. And so taking that premise that I experienced then, understanding that marketing is the process of getting the right message to the right people at the right time, I decided to write this book for tourism destinations and help them understand how to tackle the evaluation and enhancement of their brand. And that's what I did. I went through all the things that you need to know as a destination before you start examining your touch points, and we can dive into that today. And then I actually examined most of the touch points that destinations have with the outside world. And included at the end of each section is a worksheet that gives you a space to write down exactly what your plan of action is to improve that touch point. And after going through that process, we're just thrilled with how the book turned out, and it's been fun to see the sales of the book start to tick up. And for some reason in Japan, we really resonated with a group of people in Japan, because that's where our biggest order volume is from now. So we're trying to figure out why that is, and maybe tap into that a little bit more. But it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Um, so do you want to do the panel, or do you want to tell us a little bit of, just tell everyone how to get to the podcast and how to order the book, and, just the basic things? I know
Yeah, let's
Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. I'll talk a little bit about how to get to each of these things, and then I also want to introduce the members of my organization that are here
Yes.
on the call.
Yes.
So first of all, the way to find the book is just go on Amazon. We published on Amazon because it's the easiest way to publish a book. And if you just search Touchpoints by Adam Stoker on Amazon, it's pretty easy to find. And then if you want to listen to the Destination Marketing Podcast, it's really easy. Whatever podcast platform that you are consuming podcasts on, you can find it if you search Destination Marketing Podcast. But then we also have a website. If you haven't found your preferred platform for podcasts or whatever, you can go to destinationmarketingpodcast.com. And you can actually select whatever your podcast provider is and find it through that portal on the website as well. Or you can listen right on the website if that's what you'd prefer. For my advertising agency that specializes in tourism, you can find us at relicagency.com. And if anybody has any questions for me individually, you can contact me at adam@relicagency.com. And then I've asked a couple of people to join me today for this panel. One of them, his name is Alex Sousa. You'll see his name on the book. Alex was my co-author on the book and really helped me. As you mentioned, I'm wearing a lot of hats right now. And Alex really helped me to be able to take my ideas and curate a lot of the content and organize it in a simple and easy to understand way. So Alex was pivotal in our ability to have a successful book launch. And then James Gibson is an art director with Relic, but he also oversees all of our brand and brand development here at the agency. And so whenever we have a branding project, James is brought in as a specialist. And because we'll be talking branding for tourism destinations today, I felt like it was important to have James involved as well.
I don't see James. Can everybody see James and Alex? Okay, there we go. There we go. There we go. There we go.
Right here. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 days, a few weeks ago, I was introduced to Alex, and because to help us out with this event, and then I looked at the book and I said his name is on the bottom of the book. So Alex, if you can tell us your role with the book, and also James, we'd love to hear that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I work at Relic. I'm the manager of the public relations department there. And basically, like Adam said, about a year ago, he had this idea for Touchpoints. So he called me into his office and was like, "Hey, you like to write?" And I said, "Yes, I do. My background's in journalism before I switched over to PR." And he said, "I had this idea for a book, and I'd like your help ghostwriting it." So I told him that I was interested, and so he and I started working together, outlining it, and then just talking about the topic. And then I was able to take Adam's thoughts and put them into the written format. So that's the part that I played. I mean, Adam calls me a co-author. I call myself a ghostwriter, but yeah, it really it was fun seeing it take shape, and I think there's a lot of good information in there, and I hope that people can use it as a guide to really just improving their destinations.
Awesome. I think it's a great book. I think the section that I really like is the worksheets that you have. And we'll go into that during the panel. And James, I guess you're the creative one, and I guess you designed this beautiful cover. I'm guessing. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. And if you can explain that to us, that would be awesome. Yeah. And remember,
I would
we're
love to say
selling
that I did design the cover, but that was another designer. That was Kobe. But
yeah.
yeah, here at Relic, I guess I'm a big part of the branding process. Destinations, branding a destination is really interesting just because from a branding perspective, you're trying to figure out what is more to this business than generating revenue, right? You're trying to find the why, not the what. And doing that for a destination is really simple, or not. It's really complicated because it's such a unique business model, and so trying to give this destination a personality, values, a mission, a goal has really been my focus for the last couple of years. And my background is in design, illustration, and animation. And so I've been able to really focus on that, especially for tourism destinations and going along with Adam. And so, yeah, it's been really exciting kind of creating that why for destinations, why people should come. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. It's tough to brand anything and to do that for a destination. That's why we have touch points, and we'll go into that. So, Adam, this is a question from you for you. I was listening to the podcast yesterday, so I'm actually stealing a line from the podcast. How can we have a destination without people? So I'm going to throw that question to you, and if you can point to your book and cite something on that. How do we have a destination without people?
Well, that's an interesting question. How do you have a destination without people? I would say to call yourself a desirable destination, you would need to have people. But obviously, the line that you're referring to from the podcast is that there was a steady wave of people to destinations around the world, and then all of the sudden there was no people. and what a crazy time to be in travel and tourism marketing. And I actually think that is one of the main reasons that Touchpoints is a timely addition to the tourism industry, is because we get so caught up in marketing to the people that are coming to the destination and trying to cater to those people that sometimes we don't look inside or internally and see what's happening with our brand. And I'll give you a few examples. I talk at the beginning of the book about, before you go start examining your touch points, what needs to be in order, right? And there's a few things that I touch on. One of them is the customer experience. And in my opinion, the customer experience may be the most important touch point that a destination has. And the reason I say, and by the way, any business has. But I wrote it obviously from the perspective of destinations. But the way a customer feels about their experience in your destination or in your business is going to dictate so much of the story they tell and the interactions that they have after the fact and the perception that they have of your destination or business. And so one of the most important things to examine constantly is the customer experience. I tell a story in there of, in fact, it's one of my clients, and she was an early podcast guest on the show. Her name's Fallon Owens, and she is the director of the Bryce Canyon Country Tourism Office here in Utah. And, she started out as a waitress in the tourism industry. And she said people would always come to her when she was waiting their tables, and they'd say, "Hey, what is there to do around here?" And I mean, you're talking, she is in the middle of some of the very best outdoor activities in the world. And they would come to her and they would say, "Hey, what's there to do around here?" And her response would be, I don't know. I don't think there's anything to do around here, because for her and where she was at in her life and the goals that she had, it seemed like kind of a boring place. There wasn't a ton of social opportunities and things like that because it was a small town. But then as she got into her role as the director of the tourism office, it was amazing how she realized how damaging what she used to say to people was. Because if you're a visitor and you're going to someone and you're asking, hey, what is there to do around here? You want the answer to be like, oh, this place is amazing. There's so much to do. Let me give you some examples. But instead, her answer had been, hey, there's nothing to do, right? So the whole point of that is, from a customer experience standpoint, if you don't train your people to provide a wonderful customer experience, then you're going to be missing out on the opportunity to build your brand effectively. So one of the first things you need is customer experience. The next thing that you need to have in order prior to examining your touch points is to understand who you're marketing to. I said earlier, marketing is getting the right message to the right people at the right time. If you haven't clearly identified what we call your personas, and that's a visual and descriptive representation of your audience segments, if you don't have those in order and know exactly who you're talking to, then how are you going to get the right message to them? And forget at the right time. If you don't know who they are, how can you get the right message, much less the right time? And so now, after the coronavirus has hit, I think a lot of audiences have changed, and I'll give you some examples of how they have. One example is that people are less willing to travel than they were before, especially long distances. People are more likely to drive as opposed to fly than ever before, right? And the other thing that I'll say is their priorities have changed. And so what I'll say, what I mean by that is, and I actually had a conversation with James before this call about this, but if I was trying to decide as a consumer, do I want to go experience the amazing city of New York right now, or do I want to experience Durango, Colorado, a tiny mountain town with outdoor activities, right? Well, if you had asked me that question in January, my response probably would have been different than it is now, right?
Yes.
Because safety has become so much more of a priority than it was before. And so now, do I want to go be shoulder to shoulder on a subway with a whole bunch of people? Not on your life. No way, right? And so knowing that the priorities of our target personas have changed, we need to make sure that we're examining our audience again. Even if we've defined our personas over the last couple of years, their priorities have changed. The reason they make decisions has changed. And so we really recommend making sure that you've examined your target audience effectively before saying, okay, I need to change my design, or I need to change my social media strategy, and all of this stuff. Until you've dialed in those foundational elements, it's going to be really difficult to be effective in your other touch points.
Fantastic. I think I totally agree with that. And so now that we know that the customer has changed, the thinking process has changed, the persona has changed, from a creative standpoint, and James, this question goes to you. How are we going to do our content and messaging? Because as Adam said, rightly so, security is going to be number one concern for anyone. But today's news, we heard that Arizona was hit with the coronavirus. So even when you think, oh, I'll go to a small town and just, be with no virus, we don't know where this thing is going to hit. Back to you, James, from a creative standpoint with messaging and content, how is that going to change with COVID?
Yeah, and I should say this entire COVID, just like everyone else, has been an entire learning experience, right?
Yes.
And what we realized at the beginning was this is pretty scary, right? And it was scary for a lot of people. And especially as an agency who focuses on tourism, you can imagine when everybody stops traveling, that can be kind of scary. especially when you're trying to keep the lights on, right?
Yeah.
And so we realized that, okay, we need to think about this strategically. And an analogy that first came to mind that we kind of shared with a lot of our clients is, there have been every so couple of years the stock market crashes, right? And there's a lot of people who, during that time of scary of fear, they sell all of their assets, kind of in that panic and that fear, right? And but there are those who have seen what has gone before, and they know that the market returns, has always returned, and has always recovered. So that they know that this is not a time of fear and not a time of panic, but this is a time of opportunity. That if they buy a lot of stocks now, they know that it's going to go back up. So that was kind of our mindset at the beginning, right? This is scary. This is a scary time, especially when everybody stops traveling for tourism. Let's view this as a time of opportunity, because the virus is going to go away eventually. We know that. And people are going to be cooped up, and they'll be surging to go back to tourism, right?
Right.
So that's basically our mindset. Let's think about this strategically. And so that's basically our situation, right? Where people are not, it started suddenly, right? It seemed like the world stopped in one day almost. I think for us, it was the normal day. And the next day it was like, okay, we need to have a strategic meeting and plan everything out. So, but we realized that the world is not going to go back to the same in one day. It's going to be a slow transition back to things. And so we realized everyone is going to be vying for your attention at this point. In advertising, it's kind of a joke. We kind of say that, like, usually everybody's trying to get your attention in advertising, but now in a certain situation where people are simply researching and fantasizing about traveling, it's even more the case. So our mantra, our commandment, basically is: how do you stand out in a saturated environment where everybody's trying to get your attention, right? And it's almost like you're perusing Netflix, and all these shows are designed to get your attention and entertain you, and you're just flipping through the channels and nothing grabs your attention, right? And so we made the commandment of make me care. And so make the audience care about what we're doing. And we said, okay, well, how do we do that? How do we make people care? Because if you notice, for example, when you're perusing Netflix, you'll stop on a show, you don't even know why, but you care about what's going on, and it grabs your attention. And that's all by design. So we kind of looked at how do we make people care and stand out amongst those kind of saturated markets. And it's interesting, Michael, in the Netherlands, I don't know if you've heard of Mr. Rogers, but Mr. Rogers is an icon in American, just an American icon in entertainment. And he had a children's show that lasted years. And what was fascinating about Mr. Rogers is that he did everything opposite of what you should do in the entertainment industry to get people's attention. They had low production value. They had a really simple set. It was homemade. They had an untraditional, unlikely star, right? That spoke really, really slow. And so what fascinated us about him is that he was able to get people's attention. And what he did was he was extremely honest and extremely authentic and sincere, right? And I'm sure you've noticed a lot of people and a lot of advertising, it almost seems ingenuine or unsincere, right? You hear this. There was a guy on YouTube who created a montage of videos that just kind of said the exact same thing. It's been a while. We've all had a hard time, that kind of tone and voice. And that is just that's screaming to be ignored in this kind of climate. And so being just having a tone of voice creatively that's authentic, that doesn't seem manufactured, that seems honest, is a huge way to connect, right, and make people care, because it's refreshing, because they're being fed the exact same lines of copy, and when somebody speaks just honestly and sincerely, it stands out. And so that was our main concern, main concern for that. The other big part was what I've always loved about Mr. Rogers is there's a story of him keeping a piece of paper in his pocket from a social worker that gave it to him once. And the piece of paper said, frankly, it's easy to learn to love somebody once you hear their story. And that was really, really strong with us. And with destinations in the past, there's multiple parts to a destination, so you kind of have to brand it as a single entity and a single brand, right? Like, for example, San Juan County is one of our clients, and one of the features that they have is Monument Valley. And Monument Valley has been in every single Western movie known to man. I think it's in 200 movies, and it's become this giant entity of a brand for the American West, right? So you have that overall brand. So our strategy with COVID, right, was what we got to get down into the details instead of a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
And so to get people to care about essentially these businesses that need their help, because that's the situation that we're at, right? A lot of these businesses, especially in these small rural areas, need that financial help. So to get people to care about them, we feature them in the ads and tell their story, and show them a little bit why people should care about them. Because once you hear a story about this destination, you automatically care more because we're human beings, right?
I have to interrupt you, but that sounds that is about telling the story about the destination, and I think that the creative can answer to the call of the COVID by the people in the destination saying it's safe now, we're okay, you can come and travel and see us. So I think I'm getting from you, James. And I want to go back to Adam. Adam, I think Ramona has a question. Ramona, if you want to ask your question to Adam, because I know Adam has to go for the call. But it's 2:30 now, so we'll keep going. But Ramona?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Let's see.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
No, can't hear you.
Okay.
Now, yes.
It keeps referring back to mute. So, did you
Okay,
unmute it?
she put it in her chat room. Okay, hold on.
Okay.
I don't know why it's not unmuting.
There it is.
No, you're there.
Okay.
It seems like you're unmute and it unmutes itself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. We went to Alaska. Took a cruise to Alaska, went to Banff, Canada, went to Italy last year, did a driving trip to the Smokies, did a driving trip to Montreal, Quebec, and Niagara. And I'm just commenting that in terms of customer experience, the first thing my husband and I go is online. And our major thing is price and flexibility. Our worst experience is trying to plan that helicopter ride in Alaska, because not only was it overpriced, there was zero flexibility, very bad refund policies, and everything was so weather dependent. The best experience was when we got details, specifics, and when we landed at the destination, there were no unpleasant shocks. So I wanted to comment on that, because we had an excellent experience also in Italy, simply because the people there were so authentic and so flexible with all their bed and breakfasts and Airbnbs. Yeah.
I love that you bring that up. In fact, you're pretty well traveled, and that's awesome. We love We love people like you that will spend money on travel.
In fact, we were planning to go to Stuttgart in Switzerland this summer, but we had to cancel because our host, who is my husband's relative, she canceled first because of COVID. So, yeah.
Well, to respond to your customer experience comments, I'm glad you bring it up, because the difference in a lot of those cases is not so. For example, the helicopter ride. The problem was not the price of the ride. The problem was not like the lack of flexibility. The problem was the lack of communication around both of those things. And in the beginning of my book, I talk a little bit about communication and how important it is to make sure that communication is clear. And so much of a customer experience is just expectation management. If the customer expects one thing and gets that thing or better, they're going to be thrilled. If the customer expects one thing and gets something worse than that thing that they expected, that's where you run into that poor customer experience. And so it goes back a little bit to what James was saying about authenticity and making sure that we're not making promises as a destination or a business that we can't keep, but we're being very clear and authentic about what that experience looks like. And then we're doing everything we can to deliver on that customer experience. And if we're doing that, the situation you had in Alaska won't happen to other travelers.
We never took that helicopter ride. In fact, what we did was we planned our own ride and we took a train to Skagway or wherever it was, that mountain, that white mountain place.
Okay. Yeah, we have one more question. Elton, yeah, go ahead.
What I found is that invariably, if you do a great deal of traveling, there will be issues and incidents that come up. There will be. It's not question. But what I find is that the organizations that you're dealing with, if they're more than willing to fix it, make it right, compensate, adjust, or give the kind of satisfaction, because we do a lot of traveling too, but we usually pick brands that we know are committed to your satisfaction.
Yeah.
I mean, if a brand is committed to your satisfaction, they'll deliver on room adjustments, they'll deliver on hiccups in services or arrangement, or tell you what, we can't do this, but here's what we'll do. You know, you're okay. You're not going to switch brands. You're going to stay where you are, and that's what I found. I don't know how you feel about that. But I mean, I think that typically you travel a lot. You just want people to hear what you say and make some kind of adjustments with it.
Well, it's a great point, and it really goes back to the two ways to look at customer service, right? One is customer-focused customer service, and the other is business-focused customer service. And if you have customer-focused customer service, you're going to help out the customer and make sure that the customer is taken care of. I will say there's an age-old marketing story. Have any of you ever heard the story called "Give 'em the pickle"?
No, haven't.
Okay, so there's a fast food restaurant where this guy was consulting for a fast food restaurant, and he came in, and sure enough, there was a customer that was upset that they didn't have a pickle on their sandwich, right? So the customer says, "Can I please have some extra pickles?" And the cashier wanted to charge them for the pickle. And there was this big argument between the customer and the employee about the price of the pickle. And finally, the consultant just wanted to pull his hair out, and he said, "Just give him the pickle."
Right.
You know, because the pickle doesn't matter.
Right.
You know, and so, like, do we want to give the client a great experience, or do we want to nitpick on this tiny little piece of the transaction and ruin the customer experience for something that doesn't matter anyway?
No. One more question, though, Adam, and then I'll give it back. But you mentioned that you discovered in your business acumen that you were getting more Japanese travelers to your area and region. I'm curious, one, how you determined that, and two, what was the cause of it for the most part? I'm not,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, great. And sorry, I actually probably communicated that incorrectly because I was referring to my book sales. And so on Amazon, I can see where my books are being purchased from. And we had this one day where there was this huge uptick of purchases in Japan. In fact, I think I've made more money in Japan still than I've made anywhere else, which is crazy. But the way we identified that was through Amazon. And as far as the why, I'm still researching to try to figure out why.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many travelers do you get to Utah on a tourism focus annually?
How many people go to Utah annually
I
for
think
tourism?
they go for skiing, but you could tell different if it is.
Yeah, it's in the double digit millions, and I'm not sure exactly how many million that is, but because most of the destinations that we work with are destinations within the state of Utah, we don't work directly with the state of Utah, which means we're a little less privy to those overall numbers. But there are more travelers than you would imagine coming to Utah because they've found out the secret that a lot of people haven't learned, that Utah is one of the most amazing places in the world to visit. And we have the really fortunate opportunity to be able to represent and market for some of those amazing destinations.
Yeah, we were researching for this call and we were like, how come we haven't visited yet? So yes, I have Ron Tebelin. Ron, are you on the phone? Can you talk? Ron is from Florida and he does a lot with destination marketing. So we need to see if you can come on. No. Okay.
Michael.
Mike.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
I'm unmuted.
Thank you.
How's everyone doing?
We're doing awesome. Thank you for joining the call.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Very interesting stuff. Yeah, what you talk about, Adam, relates to a lot of the work we do, not only for destination marketing or marketing research, but marketing as a whole, because even a business is a destination. So a lot of people could take your book and apply that to their business for success. So one of the questions I was going to ask you is, for your customer experience in what you do for your destinations in Utah, how do you track that experience? Do you follow up via email, via phone, via personal, just a hotel that they're staying at? What's usually, how do you do that in your with your clients?
Great question, Ron. And it's interesting. There's lots of different ways to do that. And a lot of it depends on the client's budget and palette for primary research. Some destinations are willing to pay for surveys and focus groups and one-on-one interviews with visitors. And in my opinion, any business, any destination, anybody that wants to have a good customer experience, if you're not doing primary research of some sort and asking your visitors or your customers what kind of experience they had, you're missing out on some really valuable information. So lots of times we will have to rely a little bit more on like TripAdvisor and Google reviews, and then the anecdotal information that we'll get from the actual destination itself. In a lot of cases, they don't outsource, and thank goodness, because this should be managed in-house. But in a lot of cases, they don't outsource that customer experience management to us. That's a function that they manage in-house with their internal teams. And I wouldn't have it any other way, because if someone else is managing that for you, you're going to be a little bit disconnected from that experience.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
you have to. I want to go to D. Sterling. I don't know who that person is. Hello, D. Sterling. Can you speak and introduce yourself? Okay. All right. Michael from Netherlands. Money phobia. How do you think money is going to play? Because I know it's going to get very pricey to travel now. So, Michael, what do you have to tell us about money and how we're going to make those bucket list travel? Michael from Netherlands?
Yeah, I just I'm muting myself. So
money is going to play a big role because everything's going to get super duper expensive. So yeah. So what is your?
I think so as well.
Yeah.
Because as you know, the airplanes and the buses and the trains are only filled for half or even less, and the restaurants as well, at least in the Netherlands, is up to 30% or something, that everything is filled, and they have to make some kind of money. The government will not supporting them forever. So I think, or the society will be open within months, or it will be very, very expensive to travel, unfortunately, because I like to travel as well. So that's something which for the future, I think, can be threatening to the business.
Very good.
Yeah, I think it's going to get expensive.
Well, Adam, I have a question. Do you have any idea what kind of travel to Utah takes place based on business conferences, money conferences, financial conferences? Because I know Davos, Switzerland does a big deal with that, and I don't know where Utah stands with that, if you will.
Yeah, and I would say this goes for all destinations, much farther than just Utah. But that business travel component is such a huge portion of the tourism industry. I'll tell you that here in Utah, a large portion of the destinations here in Utah do have convention centers and hotels that are meant to support the business travel community. And there's some major convention centers that normally would be filled every week and now have just been decimated by the coronavirus. And I would say that conventions and business travel are going to be affected for much longer than leisure travel. And the reason for that is that business travel, just by nature, encourages a lack of social distancing. Because if you think conventions and sitting in the crowd at a keynote speaker or something like that, that's going to be changed for a very long time and may never get back to the levels that it was, because so many conferences, including even the Destinations International Conference for this year, have gone to virtual conferences.
Yep.
And are utilizing these virtual tools, and it's cheaper for the host to put it on, and it's cheaper for the attendee to attend. And I don't see that recovering in its entirety because of the convenience factor that's been created by using more video conference opportunities. So that's something that's going to be a big issue in the industry for years to come.
I totally agree. So I have Dee Sterling, and I don't know who that is, but Donna Forrest is a colonel with the U.S. Air Force. And I don't know if you know, but we live in Goldsboro, which is a Air Force Seymour Johnson base. And Donna has done a lot of travel in her time. So hi, Donna. So Donna, do you have a question for Adam about travel? Because Donna's ready to go. Donna's ready to travel, and she's not afraid. So Donna is pushing me to host my event. So, Don, are you on? Any questions about? We're doing
Absolutely.
conference with the. Tell us about the military conference, the virtual conference that we're going to. Yeah, Donna.
Sure. Yeah. Next week, Claire and I are going to be involved. I don't know if my video is working. Hopefully, it is. We're going to be involved in a virtual women's veterans event I've been to for about the last 4 years in person. It's usually held in the Washington, D.C. area because they can attract a bigger amount of veterans. But women come from all over the country to the event. But what's fascinating this year is because of COVID, it's all virtual. We're going to have a virtual conference booth. Claire's going to assist me by working with me in the virtual booth. I'll have some time to explain my business, introduce myself, and then there'll be about a 20 to 25 minute period where I can take questions, offer advice, set appointments. So I'm very excited about it. I've never done a virtual conference or had a virtual booth to let you guys know how that works out. But luckily, Claire's very experienced at these things and can walk me through it. But I'm really excited to be here. As Claire mentioned, I'm a 30-year Air Force veteran. Go ahead. Sorry, did you have a question, Claire?
No. Go ahead. You're a 34 veteran. Thank you for your service. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. And just so Adam and James know, I have been to both Hill Air Force Base and the Air National Guard Base in Salt Lake City. So I've been to both, enjoyed them both, and had a great time in Utah. Great place to go visit. And I have family there now. My nephew recently had to retire from the Marines, and he's working there, and his wife is also working there, who's also in service. So got some real great family connections. And when COVID calms down, I hope to probably drive or fly out there to see them out there in Salt Lake City. So,
Great. I
but
used
yeah,
to live
love the
right next
place.
to that Hill
Recommend-
Air Force Base.
Yeah. So, Brian, yeah,
Place, isn't it? Wow.
yeah. So I'm not interrupting, but we're trying to keep up with time. So Brian is from India. Brian, I know India is going to have the most challenge because Ramona and I were on a team, and I know that there was a time when India did not want to tell people about its poor people because we felt like if we branded ourselves as a poor country, no one is going to travel to India. And I think with the pandemic, India is reluctant to release the numbers, which must be huge, of what's going on because they're scared the tourism is going to get affected. So, Brian, what's the climate in India, and anything that you can tell us about India?
Well, Amanda, what time of day is it there?
What time? And thank you for being up so late for this call.
Yeah, I said I would because I found the topic very interesting since I loved. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, since I do love to
We can
travel,
hear you.
and it's been 2 months since I've been housebound, as I would say. But yeah, the things aren't going to open up so soon. So the tourism industry is definitely taking a back seat. Actually, inter-district travel, interstate travel is still restricted very much. But in India, we have the challenge anyway, is having tourism which is sustainable and which is because every tourist destination tends to get overcrowded. So most destinations are oversold, and in fact, promotion of a destination is not really happens not required because everybody wherever they go, I mean, there is people available, tourists coming, local tourists or from the neighboring state or international tourists, and there's so much strain on infrastructure that it's become very difficult to cope up. So actually we need, of course, here more investment in infrastructure.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian, for that. So, Adam, I'm going to wrap this up.
I'd like to say one thing.
more question, and then I have one last question for Adam. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to, sound a little more. Well, I think we're at a turning point here, and I'm encouraged because 65% of the American GDP depends on essential travel. We got to travel. I think we do have to travel. American business and trade will bounce back. I don't know what course and what time, but you can't. I don't think you could. I don't think the personal business meeting will ever be replaced. Now we're trying to compensate and work within our realms, but essentially we're going to have to see each other, talk to each other. Shake each other's hands to do real business. 65% of the GDP depends on us meeting, talking, concluding, and doing business. So essentially, we're going to be in a great place, and we have to establish ourselves over time because the government can't do business unless you see each other's face, and the military, and big business. And I was on the phone with the Dubai call just recently, and he wants to meet me and talk to me, and I want to see his face.
Yeah.
So essentially, we will bounce back. This will bounce back. The question is when the Americans will have confidence to take an air flight, to take a train, to stay in a hotel. And they tell me that hotels now are making incredible changes. You can't go to a coffee station to drink coffee. I'm to see what that's like.
Yeah.
But I just want to say that I'm encouraged. After being cooped up for 90 days, I'm really excited to travel again.
Yeah. You're going to have people that will risk it all and travel anyway. So the question, Adam, and then you can add some more comments is where do we go from here? What do you think it's going to look like after COVID?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is where I think James really hit the nail on the head, talking about the opportunity that comes along with any crisis. And there's two ways to approach a crisis. You let the crisis come to you and dictate how you are going to react, or you get out in front of it. And, in crisis, there is always opportunity for the people that approach it correctly. And James talked about, and I bet Michael has some thoughts on this too, but James talked about how the stock market, when it crashed, and the question is, are you going to take advantage of the opportunity of these low price stocks, or are you going to just pull all your money out and panic, or like what are you going to do, right? And in my opinion, panic is never the answer, no matter the crisis. But coming up with a very clear and detailed plan of how you're going to move forward and be proactive as opposed to reactive is going to decide whether you're successful throughout a pandemic. I'll give you an example. Here at Relic, as an advertising agency, we have been taking this time during the time that people have been traveling, less. And we have really worked on creating and developing new products. And one of the products that we launched is I'll call it an algorithm. It's not as scientific as an algorithm, but it's an algorithm to know when it's safe to advertise with acquisition messaging in a specific market. So, for example, a lot of my clients market in Southern California. We've created an algorithm to know when is it safe to launch your recovery campaign in Southern California. And we're using several different factors in order to come up with that. Well, we launched an email promoting that service to all the destinations that we have in our email list. And we got 22 major destinations that responded to that asking for help.
Yeah.
And to me, if you are creating products or opportunities or experiences that show that you are a leader in the industry, you have the opportunity to jump several steps in your progress and become a leader in the industry if you approach it proactively and correctly. And that's what we're making every effort to do, and that's what I would advise anybody that's trying to approach this coronavirus crisis to do, is to be proactive, take a leadership position, and guide people through the crisis.
I couldn't agree more. And on that note, I think any last minute questions before we wrap up? So I want to invite you to Michael's session, which is next Wednesday. Michael's going on next Wednesday, and he's going to do his book on moneyfulness. And Michael, would you like to tell us a little bit about your upcoming seminar? And then Donna's doing a session about insurance and retirement. So I'll let Donna talk a little bit about what she's going to do. And then I'll come back to you, Adam, to wrap up, and then we'll close. Okay. So, yeah, go ahead. Michael?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I didn't know, but it's great. Mindfulness is all about two things. It's about your mindset, convictions, your behavior, and the way your mindset is all about money and what you do with it, your belief system on one hand, but also you have to calculate as well. Because if you can calculate until you're till you die, but if you have the wrong mindset, the wrong belief system, you won't have it. You can have a perfect mindset, but if you don't calculate, you don't know how to budget or something like that, you won't have it as well. So that's what mindfulness is all about, and it's based on the 7 pillars of mindfulness. So that's basically in 1 minute.
Okay, fantastic. And Donna, you want to tell us about your session on Monday? I think it's at 8 p.m. Donna? Yep.
Absolutely. So one of the groups I specialize with is, in addition to individuals and families, I do a lot of work with business owners. And one of the things that business owners in this climate get a little fearful of is what to do with their insurance and with their retirement plans and their employee benefits. There's a lot of stress on a business owner right now. So I'm going to try and de-stress everybody and give them some advice in various quadrants of their financial planning, whether it's their insurance, whether they have key person policies that they need to place, whether or not they need to have an exit strategy for their businesses and how to go about that. We'll also talk about retirement planning. A lot of business owners take their money from their business and consider that to be their only source of a retirement plan. They need to have an actual retirement plan and strategy, not just take money out of the business and reinvest it in the business, take income out and reinvest in the business. They have to have a strategy for retirement. At some point, you have to walk away from your business and you have to do something else. For a lot of business owners, that's a stressful kind of attitude. But I
Yeah.
have to get them there. I have to convince them that someday you are going to walk away from your business, right? And then the third thing we're going to talk about is, just this notion. And I love what you guys have said today about mindset. One of the things I want to stress in my presentation next week is we've all been through a big trauma, right? And when you go through a big trauma, you go through these stages of the trauma, right? First, there's the shock of disbelief. Then there's this kind of angry phase you go through where you're kind of angry about your situation and you kind of shut down a bit, right? You're not really focused and you're not really being productive. I think now we've gotten through those kind of negative stages and we're now on the positive upswing. And I want to tell people now that we're getting out of COVID and we're able to refocus on our business, on our strategies, and on our plans. Now's the time to relook at those plans we had from maybe a year ago or 6 months ago and say, hey, let's put some fresh information in there. Let's get a fresh start. Let's start doing post-COVID as if it's over now. And we've started anew and we've got that positive mindset back, just like you guys were talking about, and it's a whole new ball game.
Yes, thank you for that. And I did remember that we have Douglas. Douglas, are you on? Can we hear you? Douglas does live streaming advertising. He does a very interesting thing on Roku channels. Douglas, can we hear you? No. Okay, so I'm going to go back. So retirement, money, advertising, and destinations. So there's a lot of investment that needs to be made to get us back to destinations and branding and how we reevaluate these. And Adam, I want to really thank you so much for your valuable time. And if you can wrap us up, and that would be great.
Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity. This has been a great discussion, and I appreciate the questions and the comments that have been made, and what you're doing to kind of facilitate these conversations. I guess I'll just close with this, and that's that. I mentioned that a brand is the sum of all the touch points your organization has with the outside world. And the good news is if you've got one bad touch point that lowers your score, that's okay as long as you're making an effort to improve it. And the idea of my book is to provide a framework to evaluate all of your touch points every year and then put together a plan and improve those. And if you do that on an annual basis, your brand is going to be as good as it possibly can be within a short period of time. So regardless of whether you're in tourism or not, if you'll do that brand evaluation and examination and action on what you find, you are going to have a better business. I have no doubt about it.
I totally agree. On that note, thank you so much for everybody for coming to the Brightside Club. And we've just started our newsletter. So, Adam, let us know when the next podcast is up so I can let everybody listen in.
So
it was valuable to me.
It releases every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Eastern. So if you want to look at that, and you can subscribe at destinationmarketingpodcast.com or wherever you download apps. But yes, if you want to include it in the newsletter, we upload them every Tuesday morning.
Okay, I'm going to do that. And another thing I wanted to just mention, we had a lot of very big brand people that wanted to be on this call today, but they didn't want to be on the call because they were afraid that they would make a statement and they were not ready to make a statement. I had a lot of cruise lines that wanted to be on this call, and I'm very interested in your book, so I'm going to connect you with them. They were afraid of being on the call because they said, we're not ready to make a statement about, their destinations opening up. So we want to bring you back. So thank you all and have a blessed time. We will see you on Monday, 8 p.m.
And we look forward to further chat and dialogue. We hope you have a great.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And
thank you.
Everybody be safe. God bless.
Everyone else overseas.
Yes.
Good evening.
Bye-bye. And get some rest.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Good night.
God bless.
Good night. What happened to Douglas? He didn't talk at all.
Douglas Sterling.